wine program. This is my channel and podcast about what every waiter, waitress, line cook, and restaurant manager needs to know about wine. You're back. I knew you would be, and I'm back as well. Wasn't really sure if I would be back, but I am. This has been a kind of a big episode to put together. It's called Winemaking and the Many Choices Facing the Winemaker, and that's going to be in 3 parts. Now, full disclosure, I've never made wine. I plan on it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do one of these like little home kits. Maybe we could even make an episode out of it. It'd be pretty cool. But in the meanwhile, I've walked in wineries in a couple of different countries. I've asked a lot of questions. I've walked in vineyards. And I've drank a shit ton of wine. I am not an expert. Like with everything, you gotta do your own research and you gotta do your own drinking, okay? I can't be there to drink it for you. Now, in the past episode, we talked about this concept that wine begins in the vineyard. If you have not seen my piece on growing wine, I'm gonna link to it here. After that, I did a piece on conventional versus sustainable versus organic versus biodynamic farming. If you haven't seen it, you should link to it here because it's all gonna kind of feed into what we're talking about here, which is enology. That is the science and art and practice of making wine. And we're going to talk about the many decisions that come along with. What are these decisions? Well, some are personal to the winemaker. Do I want to make a big, slick, glossy, modern wine that everybody loves, like really showy and flashy or big and masculine? Or do I want to make a more restrained, like cerebral style, a more classic style? Some people might say a more feminine style. Some decisions are based on practicality. What kind of fruit am I getting in? Is the fruit balanced? Am I going to have to acidify it? Am I going to have to sweeten it? And like how much manipulation am I even comfortable with? What tools do I have? What kind of technology can I afford? How many oak barrels can I afford if I want to age my wine in oak? How many oak barrels can I even fit in this small winery? And then some decisions are based on profit. A lot of people get into winemaking because they want to make money. You can buy grapes on the internet and rent a facility and bottle it. And, you meet some people who are more like label makers than winemakers or brand creators. Wine doesn't have to be about survival like it is for some families. And some people don't make wine to make a profit. Some people make wine to be sexy and famous. There is a story which I'm going to buzz through with you quickly. There was a guy, his name was Hai Sang Lee, and he fell in love with Napa Valley wine back in the 1990s. And he decided like, hey, I want to do this. I want to make Napa Valley wine. But not only do I want to make Napa Valley wine, but I want to make like Napa Valley cult wine, expensive wine. I want to make 100-point wine. So how do you do that? You need a shit ton of capital. You need a lot of money. And you need some land. So he went out and he bought the Livingston Moffett Vineyard and Winery. It's actually a pretty famous piece of property. He hired the greatest winery architect in Napa. This guy's name is Howard Backen to build him a brand new winery. Then he hired the best vineyard manager up there named Pete Richmond to manage the vineyards. And then he hired one of the most prestigious winemakers / consultants on the planet, this guy Philippe Melka. Lo and behold, Donna Estate was his creation. He bought the vineyard in 2005. His first vintage was 2007, and upon release, that wine got a 100-point score from Robert Parker. Getting a 100-point score on your very first release of your first wine is kind of like winning Rookie of the Year and a championship ring in your first season. But they're making a very specific kind of wine. You want to get 100-point scores from Robert Parker, you got to make wine that Robert Parker likes. Robert Parker is kind of infamous for being almost too powerful. People do and have made wine to appease him to get high score. The point about this is, the reason why I want to tell you about this is because it's believed that this guy, Hai Sang Lee, will never see any return on his investment for the rest of his life. Maybe his kids will, but this is what's called a vanity project. Wine's a sexy business. People got big egos. They got a lot of fuck you money. And this guy took his fuck you money and made 100-point wine. Now, moving on, all right? Blah. Another thing I want you to know is this, okay? Generally speaking, white wines are made differently than red wines because for the most part, grape juice is clear. It has no real color, right? It derives its color from the skins. You can make a white wine from a red grape, like Pinot Noir, if you crush the grapes and get the juice away from the skins quickly. You can make a rosé wine from a Pinot Noir grape if you limit the skin contact to the juice and then separate it. And you can make a red wine out of a Pinot Noir grape if you extend the skin contact with the juice. You could never make a red wine out of a white grape like Pinot Grigio, but you could make an orange wine out of it if you treat it like a red wine, if you keep the juice in contact with the skins for a long time. Now the next decision would have to be, am I going to make an oxidative or reductive style? Or which path or paths am I going to follow? Oxidative means what it sounds like. You're exposing the wine to oxygen throughout the winemaking process. Reductive sounds like just the opposite. You're reducing the amount of oxygen that comes in contact with the wine throughout the winemaking process. Best way I've heard it explained is this. Let's say you bought a big $6 green apple at Whole Foods. Get that apple, you take a big bite out of it, and it's like this fresh, bright, acidic, refreshing green apple. And then you put it down on the kitchen counter, and then you gotta run out to the store, and you're out buzzing around all day, and you come back home at 6 o'clock in the evening, and you're like, oh snap, I left my $6 apple on the kitchen counter. I don't want that money to go to waste. I got to get back to it. And you pick it up and you're going to bite into it and you're just like, wait, it's kind of brown now. It's a little tawny. It's got this little patina color to it. And then you bite into it and now it's a little bit sweeter and a little bit richer and a little bit kind of broader in your palate. Why? Because it's kind of oxidized. Now, let's say on the other hand, you wake up in the morning and you bite into that green apple. Before you leave the house, you take the apple and you wrap it up in cellophane. And then you come back in the evening and you unwrap that apple and you bite into it, and guess what? It's just as crisp and refreshing as it was in the morning. Why? Because you limited the oxygen. Even if you took that apple and wrapped it up and put it in the fridge, that would even slow the oxidation process. Temperature also will affect oxidation. I've got a couple of examples here of oxidation in white wine. One is a long, slow, controlled oxidation. Lustau Amontillado Sherry from the Los Arcos Bodega in Jerez. This was a long, slow, controlled oxidation in a series of barrels, oak barrels, called a Solera system, and it was done under the protective cover of what's called the flor. That's a bacteria. So that's kind of protecting the wine on the top, limiting the amount of destruction to the wine from the oxygen. And then also, there's fresh wine added to the Solera system throughout the process, and that's like continually refreshing the wine. And then also, it's fortified with like a neutral grain spirit. So now if you look at this wine, this was a white wine. It's brown and tawny and caramely, and it smells like candied apples and hazelnuts and almonds. And it has a little bit of an elevated alcohol content too, which is always nice. So we like sherry. On the other hand, this is Chateau Moussard's Moussard Jaune. This is like their glass pour label. At the high end, Moussard makes excellent wine. At the low end, they make excellent wine. But the problem is that this is 2014. When they make this wine, they make it quote unquote, by natural methods. Meaning they don't use a lot of additives, they don't use a lot of preservatives at bottling. This wine is supposed to be enjoyed within 2 to 3 years of release. It's now 2020, so this wine is almost 7 years old. Now I don't know if the cork was dried out and bad or if it was not stored properly. This is supposed to be a bright, fresh, white wine, somewhat like this Pinot Grigio here. But this wine has completely oxidized. It kind of smells like lemon halls or like lemon honey cough drops, okay? And I know that kind of sounds good, right? It tastes like mushy, overripe peaches, apricots. You can drink it. It's not going to kill you. And in fact, if you're a wine pro, you probably should drink. But my point is this when it comes to oxygen. Like a lot of things regarding wine growing and winemaking, it's a balancing act. But today, we're just going to keep it simple. We're going to make a white Pinot Grigio and a red Pinot Noir. I've got the Raen 2017 Sonoma Coast Royal St. Robert Cuvee. From their website, they say that this was whole cluster, native fermented, aged in neutral French oak barrels, and bottled without fining or filtration. When it comes to native yeast fermentation, I'm gonna refer you back to my terroir episode, which I'm gonna link to here at the bottom of the screen. We do a deep dive on what exactly native fermentation means and why it's cool or why it's important. Go watch it and then come back. I'm gonna give you a second. Okay, cool, welcome back. This bottling is a selection of our finest barrels giving a window into the cool, rugged westerly hills of the true Sonoma coast. Aromas of wild strawberry, crushed dark red cherries, and rose petals fill the bowl. Black tea, wet crushed rocks, and notes of, quote, where the forest meets the meadow. Damn, right? Sounds pretty good. I don't know what that tastes like or smells like. They're trying to sell some wine on their website, so I get it. The other wine here, this is the Kris Pinot Grigio, and it's the 25th anniversary bottling of this one. We used to sell this for $5 a glass at Webster Wine Bar. This wine is from Friuli, Venezia, Giulia, which is in like the northeastern corner of Italy. They're kind of most famous for their white wines up there. In particular, obviously, Pinot Grigio is a big money maker for them. And it says this wine celebrates its 25th anniversary in this vintage. And as usual, it's a laid-back, simple white wine. This bargain-priced screw cap bottle is a great summer picnic partner. So you see here, we have two totally different wines made for totally different purposes at totally different price points. Okay, this wine, you can't even get it anymore. It was 60 bucks retail. This wine, it's about $9.99. So again, worlds apart. So come back next episode and we're gonna walk through, as far as I know, the processes by which this Pinot Noir and this Pinot Grigio have been made and bottled. Bet. So like, share, subscribe, return. Remember, it's not what you know, it's what you need to know. Wine program, baby. Adios and peace.